And right in the middle of your focus, there was like a bright light.
Something like that. It just, you couldn't, you knew you could see things sort of, but what you're focusing on was not there. And now came, when I think of children, and what, of course, we see what children go through in Bosnia and everything else, and they're talking about the psychological problems in all these places. And for the next 3 months, I went through hell. What it did to me, I don't know. I ended up very quickly being about 52 pounds at age 11.
52 pounds?
Yeah. I had to lie on inner tubes because my bones were worn through. And now stop and think. Don't forget, there was no antibiotics, and I was totally poisoned. My blood was black with poison, with this infection. And so what do? Doctors, and I think they did pretty damn good. It took 3 months of hell, but here's what they did. The only food I had was every hour, on the hour, 1 hour, I would have a banana mashed like a glass of water, so thin, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The next hour, I'd have an apple mashed like a little glass of water, so thin. That was my food.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, I would take a heavy dose of Epsom salts every day. So I was constantly reamed out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was the one I remember the most. Twice a day, they would come in and pack and load blankets on me, on this 52-pounder, and put bright infrared lights all around the bed and heat me up. So I sweated another 3 pounds off or something like that. Totally wet with sweat to get the poison out. And this went on. I was there 3 months.
Where is there?
In the this wooden house hospital. I'll never forget. And then the day I came home, I had to be in bed, of course, and look outside and to see real children doing real play. It was another world for me. And I won't dwell on this too much, but then the time came I could go back to school. See, that's another thing. I missed a whole semester minimally, if not a year. I can't remember, But they don't put you back after you have these things at that time. It would upset the whole thing. So that didn't help my academic world. But then I was allowed to go to school, but I couldn't participate in recess, any activity. Well, that was a joke. I mean, I started moving pretty fast after that. The next thing I was playing football, 3-against-3 tackle without pads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of stars. But that was a major time in my life. Strictly because of finances, there was no way my father could come home to see me. And I'm dying. I'm dead. And you're a labor guy. It's in the category in many ways of the Macy story of the man that had 7 kids. True story. I've heard in the social gospels in area way back there. And his daughter is dying today. And if he left Macy's to go home, fine, go ahead, but don't come back tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to put food on the table. He can't see his daughter dying. It's in that category. I believe. My brothers don't believe this.
Mm-hmm.
that my brothers don't believe this. I believe. I the thing that I to this day, jumping ahead way about that, I seriously want to, with 2 or 3 folks, work on badly, going through with what my daughter's going through and everything else, knowing the full oppression of women and what that means and what that's been for so long, and the silencing of women and everything else. How simple it is to say that because of men. I think that same system has and is paying a hell of a painful, suffering price on men. If it's true that my father couldn't come home because he got to put food on the table or whatever.
When did he leave? How old were you when he left?
I think about 7 or 8. But we'll skip a lot of stories on that. There's lots of stories there. We'll never get through the chronological thing.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah, okay.
So I go to high school following in my brother's footsteps, and I'm not cutting it too well. Okay. That's all I want to say now. I'm not cutting it too well.
Okay.
We're poor as can be. We're in a society that is totally class society, 100% more so in high school than any part of society. It's white, it's rich, and it's sororities and fraternities, and that's dominated everything. And I couldn't fit. I do want to say that I did have a friend, George Nettles, who lived on Bayshore Boulevard, who lived with his folks had died in Boston. He was rich, but he lived with the Logans, and the Logans owned half the city after the crash. He was rich, and he violated everything in terms of rich and poor. We were buddies. That's a big chapter. I had entrees to places that I shouldn't have had because of George. You follow me what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I might add, he died after college from a heart attack.
Huh.
Beautiful guy. But there are a lot of things. I take it back. I don't think my father left that early. I must have been 9 or 10 when he left. Some of these things slip out.
Sure.
Only thing I remember at graduation in high school is there wasn't any family.
Huh.
There never was after that either when I graduated from college or anything. My mother was a proud woman, and so it's helped me a lot to understand some of the things that we come down on some of the black women in Project Neighbors. The pride thing, and how you're seen by the larger community and reputation and stuff. My mother didn't have anything to wear, and so she couldn't go. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I got used to that stuff. Confirmation was a trip. All I want to say right now is that, because we can come back to these things, it knocked out a year of football for me, which didn't help me at all athletically and stuff. To be confirmed, I had to go 2 streetcars to get there and 2 streetcars back. And the old pastor never communicated anything other than memorization, which that's it.
Mm-hmm.
On church scene before my father left, we had Sunday school and then there was church. And those that went to Sunday school usually played outside while adults went to church the second period, okay?
Mm-hmm.
My mother never went. I can understand, she not only had to cook a massive dinner, which would last for the week for the whole outfit, 3 families, but I think it was also her moment of freedom
Mm-hmm.
for the whole week. Even though we had to go to church and she was super moralistic. But my father would be in church, and I couldn't stand it. After a while, I wanted to go and sit with her, you know. So I asked to go to church. Unheard of. Instead of horsing around afterwards for an hour. But I was never forced to go or anything else. I was inquisitive. And about that time, we had a new pastor, Elmer Barrett. Most unusual man. Elmer Barrett, Berght. Most unusual man. He had 6 children, jumping way ahead. When I in the Korean War, I was on the docks at Yokohama when he and his family arrived to become missionaries to Japan. I greeted him.
Huh.
He became friends with Jews, lots of folks. No way was he a racist, which is exercised in strange ways at that time. To be a radical meant that you allowed blacks in the back of the church. That would be radicalism. And
sure, to allow them in the church at all would.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what they did. They didn't. That's what they. Ooh, I got a cramp. God dang, those muscles cramp. They cramp.
Or in the leg?
Yeah, my side. Wow, in the back. Hamstring. Oh, I think I'm getting control. This pushes on my back and my thigh for some reason.
You have a different chair?
No, I just sit differently. But at age 60, see, we had a youth group, and I won't go into these stories. It's called the Walt League.
Mm-hmm.
And I was forced to go. I went thinking that you're not going to go to heaven if you didn't go. But I clearly didn't know how this was going to get me to heaven. But very quickly, my friend Dick Herbert, very, very poor, single mother, telephone operator, very poor, was one of my clan of 5. We haven't gone into the gang of 5. He was a Methodist. So they had the Epworth League. Okay? And that was only a half mile away from home. I would fake going to the Walther League and go to the Epworth League because I like nearer my God to thee and what a friend we have in Jesus a lot better than our hymns.
Here.
And they seemingly had more fun than we did. So I would fake going, and plus there was a cute gal there. But I would fake Martha LaRue. No, not LaRue. Martha Lee something. I don't know.
The cute girl at the
Epworth.
okay.
So Mom thought I was going to Walt League. I was going to Epworth League. We didn't have communications like you have today. When you graduate, at my time and before, you're now ready to either go to college, which was for the 1%, which was our mindset, but no way in hell, okay? It was our background, it was our aristocracy, it was but no way you can even think it. So the other choice for the 99% is now's the time you got to go to work, get a job, get married. Might not have a girl, but you're going to get married now and have kids. So jobs were scarce. And I finally hooked in with Knight and Wall, and that was through a little clout, kind of, from way back. And that was a major time in my life. I mentioned some of that.
Yeah.
A lot of stories for that. And now I was sitting in the Franklin Theater on December the 7th, 1941, watching Sun Valley Serenade with Sonia Henney. And what's his name in his orchestra? What's his name in his orchestra? Glenn Miller. And halfway through, they had just started the MacDill Air Force Base, which I didn't know what that was, near my house. They stopped the movie. Well, all personnel from MacDill report to their base immediately. I didn't pay too much attention to it. It started coming in on the radio, and very quickly we were at war.
That was your first clue of the war?
No, it was not. Oh, yeah, this is a couple of uncles. I went to a party kind of gathering. I guess you'd call it brats and beer today, but of course I wasn't allowed brats and beer. But I was taken with an uncle. Actually, that was a Nazi support group. And through my very German family people, we were finding out that things were getting better in Germany, and jobs were coming about.
Under Hitler.
Under Hitler, yeah. And so he wasn't a bad person at all, far from it. Far from it. And we went to some Bund meetings or something like that. Mm-hmm. At the same time, Ernie, I think, had enough at Bentley Gray, and Otto had enough selling Morton Salt or whatever he was selling. And they both volunteered. Ernie had to go through the Canadian Air Force to get in the Air Force, and then later transferred. We had no college seat. That's why he had to do that. And so they have stories. But here I'm sitting back home, and now I'm working 72 hours a week. The only thing I want to say about that, it's amazing how you can adjust to 72 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I couldn't even fathom it. I can't fathom a 30-hour week today. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But how you can adjust, and how the mom allowed me to go to a movie on Saturday night. because I didn't have to get up at 3 the next morning. I had to get up at 7 or 6:30 because I had to work only 8 hours on Sunday. That was like a holiday. Sunday was like a holiday. I only had to work 8 hours.
You work 7 days a week,
6 days at 12 hours and
and then your holiday of 8 hours.
and my holiday of 8 hours. I was paid the equivalent of 3 weeks each week because for 6 days it was time and a half overtime, and then Sundays it was double time, something like that. I had the equivalent of 3 weeks' pay each week, but it was 17 cents an hour or something like that. But I'm just amazed to this day because I think back. You forget the time that you don't have. You forget the time you spent in the bay, sailing and horsing around. You just forget it. You look forward to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I mean, I can remember that. Oh man, it's Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
God. Well, anyhow, it's a very dangerous place to live. People were literally maybe one a week getting killed in this big shipyard. It was violated everything today on safety.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I wasn't very free.
Mm-hmm.
And so the time came for me to volunteer. I had no counsel, talked to no one. I just announced to Mom I'm volunteering, and they pushing me into something because I've known both ends of a sailboat backwards and forwards and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple of ranks I looked up, and
The recruiters put you into the Navy?
Yeah, into sort of a special branch, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was getting a couple bucks more because they raised me a couple levels because I knew what the water looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And starboard and port and stuff like that. And I'll never forget going to the Union Station and that beautiful silver media train, which still runs today from Tampa and Miami to New York. God almighty, free at last. And everybody's there crying, sniffling. Little Walter's going to war. Shit, I was going to freedom. I can, to this day, understand all the blacks in Vietnam. It's a way out, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was their only way out, probably. So, I went to war.
Boy, that, for me, that was being dropped off at college.
Yeah.
I can remember my parents, it's away, it's 4 hours away, and I can remember my parents dropping me off, and they're, oh, George, how are you going to be, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, yes.
But, it's amazing to me. That isn't how an awful lot of kids feel. Their folks come in and make their beds and arrange their furniture and everything.
I was gone.
Man, get out of here.
Yeah.
And I discovered that was almost every guy I know. And today guys are not in a hurry to leave that scene. Guys, males.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting to me. Girls are more interested in leaving the scene than guys are today. And it was just the opposite back then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the young girls even remotely thought of that. What is so far removed from possibility, it didn't enter their mind then.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I was dreaming of the day when I was at Night and Wall when I could be a salesman on the road. I mean, Fort Myers, Fort Lauderdale.
Would you have had a car to do that, or?
Oh, I would have a van. I would have a van, with stuff in the back.
Uh-huh.
Where that's go. That would have been $37.50 a month.
And that would have been the company truck, company van. Stay in hotels.
Oh yeah.
Expense account.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Not much, but I'm sure.
No.
The kind that you could probably make your own sandwiches and keep the change or something.
Yeah. That was the dream.
That was my dream. $37.50
a week.
Yeah. Now the worst.
And now you make that much.
Now it makes
that's a joke I have about my dad. My dad always said his dream was to make $5,000 a year. And I always say, now he does.
I think I want to back off the war right now just to say that I made all those invasions.
Run them down for me one time.
North Africa, Sicily, Salerno, Normandy, southern France, Iwo Jima, Hiroshima, Tacloban, Okinawa.
Okay.
But, and then I ended up in Tokyo, first group in Tokyo, and then we went to Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan for liberation, and then we went to China, Tacloban, China. And then probably some key things in that thing was my closest friend was Jerry Norris, who was a Jew. And I went through some pretty heavy theological phases. I can remember in England, I suddenly was, I practically would be called a fundamentalist today, until I got together with some fundamentalists who turned me off, both on the ship and ashore. And they totally turned me off, primarily because there was no room for my friend, Jerry. Not that he would go, he wouldn't go, but mindset-wise. Because Jerry and I would talk a lot about life, things. Jumping ahead here, he's the guy that after 50 years gave me a call from California 2 years ago and called me about 5-6 times since. He was a friend on ship, but I never went ashore with him. And this is a major part of the war for me, called sex. I didn't go ashore with him because he made out with every nationality in the world, because we were in every port in the world. And that's the first thing he did, and the last thing he did on every liberty. And as you've heard me before, even though I was a very passionate young man and liked girls like crazy, I had no tattooed on my forehead by my mother. And there's no way I could be bad. There's just no way. I wanted to, and fantasies were big. But I did get to meet some fine young women, maybe because of that. Not very many, but Thea in Scotland, Whack, Weymouth, England, and stuff like that. But theologically, I was always there. I think of my daughter Beth a lot on this score, because I forgot Elmer Beck, but before I went to war, at age 16, I would go at night in his study, and we'd talk about the war.
What's his name?
I gave it to you
Oh,
before. Elmer, the pastor.
Yeah, okay.
We'd talk about the war. Whatever we talked about, I can't remember, but that has never left me, the fact that this busy pastor always had time to talk to his dumb 16-year-old. I mean, take whole evenings, Amazing to me. It was to me. It was very important to me. Whether he said right things or wrong things, I don't know. But we'd talk. That was key. Now back to where was the sex thing? Probably. That was so big on. I mean, what's jumping into my head now is Sasebo, Japan. This was Korean War. Even then, but somewhere in there, we were told to line up. This is in Asia. I don't remember where. To line up and go through sick bay and look at this guy's penis from venereal disease, what it did to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I refused. And that refusal cost me a captain's mask. That's not a big deal. I mean, I had to get black marks on my name and everything else and stand in front of the captain. And I refused. I already had my big no. I didn't need to look at that shit,
Mm-hmm.
I had a higher power. It wasn't God. It was Mama. And very serious. And that's why a major theme for me, which is exact opposite in all schools today, our whole school system. There is no genuine education apart from dialogue between generations, 2 or 3. There's no education apart from that dialogue. Now, old people have a very poor track record on their responsibility as well as young people. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
One calls the other one old fuddy-duddies, and the other one calls young people I don't know whether they're going crazy today. I mean, there's no dialogue. And
well, I think,
there's no education without it. That's my argument.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things mentoring is something that is important.
Oh, I think it's crucial.
Anyway, just, I'm not losing this, but yeah, the war, what'd you do after the war? Just.
Well, about a year and a half or 2 before the end of the war, I was beginning to think about that. You got to remember, this wasn't in my head then, it's in my head now. This was the last of the glory and honor wars.
Yeah.
There was no question. And we had to win this and win this and win this before we could go home.
Mm-hmm.
Those wars are gone.
Yeah.
Now it's political, all political and holy wars. So I didn't know whether we had 11 more years. This was major in my head. I can remember it on the ship in the Pacific, everywhere. Will I ever walk out of my screen door again into Bayshore Court? I mean, I can remember that. Will I ever have breakfast and walk out of the screen door into my Palm Row street? That image was there all the time. And I wasn't so, I had that, what that translated to, I'm not going to, in my lifetime, be a normal person. I'm not going to marry when most people marry. I figured another maybe 11, 15 years we're going to be doing this.
The war.
Yeah. It's my way of life, which I didn't like at all. I was a freedom lover. I mean, I hated it. Hated every second of it. Hated it. First one off the ship, no matter what. Last one aboard, no matter if I hadn't slept 2 days, I'm off the ship. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyhow, okay. They're talking about the end of the war. I think I was still in the Atlantic. They talking about the GI Bill. You could go to any college that would take you, and it would be paid for, and you'd get some money. Any college that would take you, you could go. You could go to any college. Here, all colleges had been wiped out from me, you know. So a year or so to go, I thought, well, the only person that ever made any sense in my life was Coach Jimmy Hughes in high school. I want to be a football coach. So I literally inquired, what's the best school for this kind of training in the world? If I can go anywhere, I might as well do it right. Seriously. And discovered that Springfield College is the known best school for the physical athletics education in the world. Very small college in Massachusetts, but it was world known. It had invented the game of basketball and volleyball. Invented the game. That's where the Hall of Fame is today. For those two sports. Basketball and volleyball. 1891, 1893.
Huh.
And so I applied there, and they wrote back, well, you know that our little school is all male, and they're all physically fit, so there ain't nobody here except we're now a rehab center during the war, you know. The faculty was used in many different ways and stuff like that. But I was finally accepted to be in the first class whenever they opened up again. So I had another year or so to go. I had my certificate to go to college. Whenever I thought maybe 11 years from now.
So while you were in the Army, you got accepted to Springfield College. Yeah.
So that was a security kind of thing. And when I eventually got out, they weren't going to open up for 9 months. And that's when I took a laborer's job, construction. The one story there quickly before I quit on this is I can remember to this day during the break. Oh, I was the only white. These older black guys. And I said to them, you guys don't really work too hard, do you? And they said, Sonny, you won't be here in another year. When we're 70, we're still doing the same damn shit. We got to pace ourselves. And I really got the message.
That's just so ironic to me. Didn't I tell you that same story from mine?
I think I remember that.
Yeah. It was an old black guy in a steel mill, and he said, son, you're here for the summer. I've been here 28 years, and we're going to work at a pace I can stand.
And I fully understood that.
I never pushed him again.
God will work. And consequently, I slowed down, because I'd always run. I'd run. I slowed down because that's not fair to them.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I prefer running, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
it made absolute sense to me. It was one of the first times I got slapped in the face with, don't be so cocky.
Yeah.
You know. That's interesting. Where were you when you did the construction?
Tampa.
Tampa. Okay.
And then I'll finish. Then we ought to quit.
Okay.
Right after the war. See, during the war, I was in Norfolk on one exchange for a short time, and I met an admiral's daughter. And we hit it off. Lois Jarvis. Then we came through to the Pacific, and she was now in Philadelphia. And I know the 63rd Street Station. I know Ardmore and Lansdowne. I know all those places.
No kidding.
Yeah, I know all those places. I spent every second with her. And then our letters were enough to make anybody buzz, man. I mean, they were hot and heavy letters that only fantasy can do. And that's all I knew her, except we were very tight with each other, and a lot of little stories here. But her daddy now was commandant of the Philadelphia Navy Yard. That's a pretty big time. I wasn't fooling around, this little boy from poor side of Tampa. And we became engaged in the mail. So now I'm in Tampa working as a laborer with the blacks. And I had to get up to see her in New York. She was in New York City going to a college in New Jersey across the river. Swanky college. And I wanted to bring her a ring. So I took our mustering out pay, everything I owned, and bought a ring. And I can remember this, that my mother is quite a woman. I'm sure she knew how stupid this was. But how she accepted it, you know. It was my decision, just like my vasectomy. That's something else I got to talk about later. My vasectomy. She's the only one that accepted it. And it's totally violated everything of her thought. But how she accepted reality, you know, my reality. It's amazing. But I flew up in a snowstorm from Davis Island. Davis Island was a little mini airport. That was our big airport at the time. In a snowstorm, we circled New York in this little DC-3, 2 hours, finally landed. I go see her. I got my leather combat coat on. And she thought I gave her the ring, but she thought it was time to go all the way, and I didn't. And we ended up being incompatible. And we better not get engaged. She gave me the ring back. That was mutual. I saw her in an airport 20 years later in Washington. Unbelievable. But that was a little point in my life. Main thing there is Mama, I think. But it's late.
Yeah.
Is it too late for you to go to the forum?
I'm not going to that. No. Yes.
But that's
fine. That's fine for you.
I don't know whether I want to, because we meet again at 12, whether I want to meet Laura in chapel or not. I don't need no preaching, but I don't know. I'll let her tell me what that is.
Partly as I go to forum for some intellectual stimulation drinking. And this is some intellectual stimulation too. It's
no, I think in everybody's life it's loaded with stuff that